Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Obviously recording this on the same day. We're only going to do chapter 12 because I'm already tired and that last one was really long, so ow. I got calluses. I haven't had calluses in what feels like years, so everything hurts. Today we are reading His Reasons. It's a Todoroki X Reader fanfic by AshleyH713. We are doing Season 2, Chapter 12. This is Part 12, which I find amazing. So, I think that's funny. You know, Part 12 is Season 2's Chapter 12. Yeah. I'm rambling. Let's begin. Season 2, Chapter 12. Moving towards Endeavor's agency, Todoroki and Amari were strangely quiet. It was agreed that after she wouldn't back down from this, Todoroki also wanted to train with his father. Part of it was for her sake, but the other part was just because, regardless of the past, Endeavor was a pro hero for a reason. He still wanted to learn from the best. They saw the outline of the tall building in the distance when Amari suddenly stopped, her hand now with an air of uncertainty in it. "Hey, Shoto?" He stopped as well, seeing the look of distress in her face. Maybe she was second thinking this dangerous choice. He sure hoped so. "What's wrong? You don't want to do this? If you don't want to do this, we can just go back to UA and choose another agency." Although Amari just frowned, shaking her head in frustration, almost like she was upset by the idea. "What? No, that's not it. I wanted to talk to you about something before we go in." Todoroki eyed this with confusion before letting her continue, having her voice come out rather quiet. "Listen, I think it would be better if we weren't in a relationship while we are here." His eyes grew in one of shock, releasing her hand at the same time. What was she talking about? Did she want to end the relationship? What? You don't want to be together? The look, betrayal, and sadness must have been transparent because Amari immediately put her hands out, speaking fast and backtracking. "Oh, no. I didn't mean it like that. Of course I do. It's just..." Sighing heavy, Amari cast her eyes towards the ground. "I already know I'm going to have a target on my back while I'm here, and I don't want that for you too. They are already going to think I came here with ill intentions." Todoroki didn't really understand what she meant, but he also knew she didn't like that he didn't like the idea. "Amari, I'm not just going to sit around there and watch my old man hurt you. I'm sorry, but I just can't do that." His intentions were good, but yet she still seemed saddened by them. This is the choice I've made. I know you are worried, but I'm not backing down from it." Todoroki shook his head in frustration at her words. It was obvious she didn't understand what his father was capable of. "I understand, but I'm not going to let anything happen to you. If it's becomes too much, just tell me. I will fix it." Amari thought for a moment before he watched her frown, somehow not enjoying his declaration. He was treating her like a fragile doll, someone that needed saving, but that wasn't what she wanted. Brushing her hair behind her ear, Todoroki caught sight of one of her scars while Amari spoke, low and suddenly serious. "Shoto, not to be blunt, but I think you are underestimating everything I've been through to get here." He stood still at her tone, watching the air around them have more ominous feeling to them. Her eyes, they looked focused and distant, almost like when she was in battle. Just then her tone shifted back, Amari giving out a heavy sigh and clearing the atmosphere. She then grabbed a hold of Todoroki's hand. "Right now, I don't need your help. I need your support. Please, can you do that for me?" Looking down at her hands, Todoroki still felt a small sense of doubt in his stomach, although he pushed it down for now. He still wasn't about to let her get hurt on his watch. "All right." She smiled then, making his palms rise with heat. "Thank you. Now, shall we?" Todoroki nodded his head in response as they moved towards the building, now with detached hands. It was time to get serious. Knocking on the surface, Amari and Todoroki opened the door to Endeavor's office quietly, seeing the man himself seated at his desk, although when he caught Amari's eye, he was less than pleased. "Welcome, my Shoto. So you finally agreed to my path for you?" Although Todoroki didn't seem amused, only shaking his head. "No, my decision had nothing to do with you as a father. You just happen to be one of the top pro heroes." His father frowned at that. "I see. Well, it's a step in the right direction. You are making progress. That's all that matters." Then he rose from his desk, moving over to Amari. This girl was becoming a real pain in his ass. He halfway thought she would have ran home crying by now. And you, I hope you don't think I sent that offer because of your talent. His cocky attitude was not lost on the girl. Instead, she only matched it, smirking back. And I hope you didn't think I was stupid enough to actually believe that. Oh, please, I know exactly why you were interested in me. Todoroki's eyes widened at the girl's response. She had no idea what she was getting into. Why was she trying to get herself killed? She needed to stop being so reckless. Endeavor didn't seem to enjoy her response either. Interested is not the word I would use. Yet even after knowing this, you still came here? I'm not sure if I should call you foolish or bold for that decision. Crossing her arms across her chest, she replied sarcastically, Well, how could I possibly turn down an offer from the greatest number 2 hero? Now that would seem foolish. It was obvious she was mocking him, and Todoroki was more than afraid of her by the second. What was she even thinking? He had to stop it before she got hurt. He prepared his courage when Endeavor cut him off, taking a step closer to the girl. Listen, child, you seem a little too confident in your answer. Doing this will not strengthen your worth to me. Clapping her hands together, Amari laughed at that, narrowing her eyes. That might mean something if I actually cared about what you thought about me. Endeavor stopped then, already fed up with this girl. She was acting so cocky. Let's see how she is after this week. Week's up. Then she'll learn her place. Letting his anger diminish, Todoroki's father spoke back evenly. Let's see how confident you are after this week is up. I assume you already know that this agency won't hold back, regardless of your fragile condition. You better prepare yourself, child. Although Amari didn't feel intimidated in the slightest, only welcoming the challenge. Oh, I'm counting on it. Narrowing her eyes at her disrespect, Endeavor then stepped past her, pointing towards the door. Very well, I'll take you both to the training ground to meet the other trainees and sidekicks. Todoroki and Amari looked between each other, then before slowly following Endeavor out of the room and down the hall. Todoroki couldn't help but feel a lump of anxiety already rising in his throat. He had a bad feeling about all this. Following Endeavor down the long hallway, the two just silently looked between each other and shared a silent look. It was almost as if Todoroki was asking if she was okay, but the only response he got was a slow head nod. They stopped in front of a large door before pushing it open, the smell of sweat and the sound of loud shouting echoing through the space all at once. When the strangers caught Endeavor's form, they immediately stopped whatever they were doing, already making their way over to him. Sir, to what do we owe the pleasure? Todoroki's father then stepped aside to show his son. This is my son. This is my son, Shoto. He will be interning with us this week, as part of his UA training. At the name, the others sprung to life, excited, crowding the poor boy. One particular began to speak. Oh, I've heard about you. You were the one that dominated the sports festival. Pretty impressive. It will be good to have someone strong like you on our side. Although Todoroki seemed uncomfortable already. He really hated being his father's shadow. It's nice to meet you all. They all smiled when Amari stepped out from Endeavor's tall form. It was obvious he wasn't going to introduce her, so she'd have to do it herself. Jerk. Hello, my name is Bakugo Amari. I will also be in your care this week. At her words, everyone just stopped and stared at the now small, cute little girl next to them. Were they hearing things? Did she just say she would be interning here also? Impossible. Almost at once, everyone blinked in surprise. The boy, same that was talking to Todoroki, now turned to her. I'm sorry, I don't think I heard right. Did you just say you're interning here also? That's a good one, kid. Amari narrowed her eyes at this, taking a challenging step forward. You have a problem with that? The boy seemed shocked as Endeavor's voice cut through the space. Yes, these two will be in your care this week. Be careful not to push them too hard, or else it will be a stain on our reputation as a company. Okay? Katsu? Whatever the fuck. He said that to both of them, but it was so obvious that he only meant Amari. Of course, he would single her out like that. Katsu smirked at that, already scanning her worth and finding nothing. This little girl was clearly in over her head. She wouldn't last an hour. Understandable, sir. The other members seemed to not be pleased either, slickering around her like they found a new prey. I'm gonna fall over. Jesus Christ. She didn't look like much. Are you sure Shrimpy here can really handle this? Maybe it would be better if she left before she cries. Todoroki heard all the insults and couldn't just stand still. They were picking up on her because of her size, already singling her out. He didn't want this for her. Puffing his chest out in anger, he stepped forward then, placing a warm hand on Katsu's arm. Don't speak to her like that. Although the boy only seemed to laugh, finding amusement in his words. Oh, look, it's the knight in shining armor, here to save the princess. Does he always do this for you, kid? That's how you got here in the first place, isn't it? At his words, Mari's face turned to one of irritation. Reaching down and removing Todoroki's hand roughly. He was making things worse. It was as if she was angered by his help. Shoto. Even with the sound of his name, Todoroki knew she was not pleased, so he complied, dropping his hand slowly. Amari? They shared a silent look before Katsuki laughed again, eyeing the two carefully. Wait, now I know who you are. You're the one that confessed to him in front of the entire festival. Oh, so now I see why you're here. It's just to be with your beloved boyfriend, right? Well, this isn't a game. Just go home, kid. Todoroki wanted to tell him off so badly, but because of her body language, he resisted. Although, just barely. They really thought she'd cheated her way to get here, when in actuality, Amari had worked harder than anyone. It was ridiculous. He was stopped when Endeavor's voice cut back in. Alright, now that you've introduced yourself, we will start by patrolling the area. Come, Shoto. We have much to do. Hearing him single her out, Amari stepped forward as well, calling back to him. Wait, hold on. You are supposed to train me as well. Where the hell do you think you're going? Endeavor stopped then, the air turning slightly more dark. Oh, you didn't think I was going to waste my time with you, did you? How foolish. Only the most capable of my team are sent to patrol, and I don't want to have to be responsible for a lesser hero like you. We are not a babysitting service. Amari stood in silence, carefully seething at his words. He was calling her nothing. A nobody that didn't even deserve to stand next to Todoroki. That very idea made her infuriated. He really was going to leave her behind. Todoroki noticed her displeasure as well, and also wasn't thrilled with the idea of leaving her. Who knows what could happen without him next to her. If she doesn't join, then I'm not following you. Endeavor took in the disobedience slowly, although it wasn't him who spoke out about it, it was Amari. Shoto, you should go. Blinking in disbelief, he answered, What? Amari, I already told you I'm not leaving you alone. The other sidekicks and trainees started to chuckle at his declaration, which made Amari even more uncomfortable. I don't need your pity. If he doesn't want me to go, then that's that. It's a good opportunity for you. You need to take it. He supposed she was right. This was a good opportunity for him in terms of learning how to be a better hero, although leaving her behind felt wrong. She could see that he was wavering, so in order to quell his mind, Amari softly smiled, nodding her head in acceptance. Hey, I'll be okay. Don't hold back because of me. I don't want that for you. Staring at her face, he found it harder and harder to say no. If she really wanted him to do this, then he couldn't deny her. Alright, but let me know if you need anything, alright? Amari gave a half-hearted nod, as Endeavor started to drag him away, but not before whispering something to Katsu. Put her through the hardest level we have. Don't stop until she gives up and goes home. Katsuki nodded. God, what is wrong with me? Katsu nodded his head, already knowing what the plan was. He wanted to drive this little girl out. He could comply to that. Understood. Todoroki's father smiled then, taking one last look at the poor girl before turning away. She wouldn't even last the rest of the day. Once they were gone, Amari put her hands down, hearing the heckling voices behind her. Are you sure you want to do this, Shrimp? It won't be very pretty, and your boyfriend isn't here to save you now. Just give up already, like you did with protocoling. What is wrong with me? I know what the word is now. Why can't I? Patrolling. There we go. Staring at the ground for a moment, she only smirked. Of course this wasn't going to be easy. She was going to have to claw her way back to the top again. You are mistaken. I haven't given up. I just need to force him to look at me. The other teammates seemed confused by her words. You talk pretty confident for someone that was just rejected. Turning around back to the boys, they suddenly felt a new air around this girl. It was dark and ominous, almost challenging in a way. She looked completely different from just a few moments ago. Oh, I wasn't rejected. He just doesn't realize how serious I am yet. She then took the box of pills from her back pocket before lifting a challenging hand to Katsu. Well then, shall we begin? Endeavor returned after sunset, slipping away from Todoroki to check on Amari. As he stepped into the agency, he was sure that she had already gone home hours ago, probably crying and whining along the way. Now, he wouldn't have to bother with her anymore. Approaching the second floor windows, that overlooked the training grounds. He was about to peek in when one of the trainees burst through the door, clutching his side. "Oh, sir, you're back!" He eyed his injuries with interest, ignoring it for now. "I came to check on the intern, although she must have gone home by now, correct?" The boy turned nervous, and that when another sidekick, Katsu, burst through the door, breathing heavily. "Sir, where'd you even pick this one up? She's insane!" Not understanding his question, Katsu continued. "I don't know what is wrong with that kid, but she has a death wish. She has a death wish or something. I followed your orders and haven't let her rest since we started, hoping it would drive her out to quit faster." Now even more curious, Endeavor somehow knew he didn't like where this was going. "And?" Katsu then nervously pointed towards the window in question. "Take a look." He put a brow up in question as Todoroki's father made his way towards the training ground windows. Katsu must have been mistaken. It had been nearly 5 hours since he last left her. There was no way she was still going strong. Glancing into the window, his eyes couldn't help but widen at the sight before them. Amari was still there, breathing heavily as sweat dripped down her face. She looked relatively close to exhaustion while fighting off her attackers, although she was still somehow standing. They came at her all at once, quirks aimed at her body, but Amari was not giving up, using her gold matter to trap them in their own separate domes. It honestly looked like it physically hurt to use her quirk, but she still wasn't backing down. Noticing Endeavor in the window, she frowned, closing her fist so the attackers were face planted to the ground. Good. He was watching. Then she turned to him and shouted out in short gasps of breath, obviously struggling to breathe. "Now are you ready to face me instead of sending your lackey to do your dirty work instead? Am I worthy enough to be in your presence now, Endeavor?" Katsu's eyes widened at her tone, speaking towards his boss carefully. "This girl, is she even human? It's like she doesn't have any fear at all." Endeavor watched the girl challenging him with pure hatred in her eyes, still not giving up. "Hey, I'm talking to you, asshole. Come here and face me, you coward." All the sidekicks looked at her. She was insane. When their boss himself walked into the room, looking less than pleased. This caused everyone to shrink away from the poor girl. Now she's done it. He stomped up to her, intent in his step, until they were only a couple inches apart, trying to intimidate her. "What did you just say, child?" Although she didn't seem fazed in the slightest, looking up to meet him. "You heard me." The crowds around them began to whisper wildly at the girl's courage and stupidity. She really didn't know what she was getting into. The air was silent for a couple minutes before Endeavor came to a decision. Looks like this girl wasn't getting the point. Instead, he would have to drive it home himself. Speaking low, he finally replied, "All right, I will face you, but do not regret your decision. I will show you firsthand just how weak and useless you are to the Todoroki line. I will prove to you that you are not strong enough for my training. Prepare yourself." Finally, giving Amari what she wanted, she couldn't help but turn her lips into a sly smile. His father was going to see firsthand how serious she was about this. "And I will prove to you that I shouldn't be underestimated." Moving away from each other to get in position, Endeavor could already tell this girl was going to learn her lesson. He needed to take her cocky attitude right from under her. "Once you learn your lesson and give up, I'll stop." But Amari only found his words funny. "Bold of you to assume I'm going to give up." Then all at once he came barreling towards her, but Amari now trying to play the options in her head, this was going to be extremely difficult. But she didn't need to win. She just needed to show him she was serious. Throwing a fist down, Amari's small size allowed her to slip under his large arm, throwing up a protective shield to get away from his flames. Endeavor turned away at the move, throwing a ball of fire in her direction, and she put her arms up to block it, although the impact was so forceful that it cracked her shield, causing her skin to burn. Amari seethed the pain and shock. This was far different from any other student she had faced before. It was like he was in another league. His hits, they were so forceful. Seeing her burned skin, Endeavor put his hand down for a moment. "Now do you understand? Stop this before you get yourself killed." But Amari just narrowed her eyes, already readying her quirk for her next attack. "This is nothing. I've had far worse before." Then she ran at him again, intent in her step. This time she tried a new strategy, lighting up her palms with good matter in order to return the favor and burn his skin as well. But before she could process it, Endeavor reached down and grabbed her arm, twisting it in an unnatural way in a careless manner. It was like he wasn't even trying. Picking her off her feet, he tightened his hold around her before throwing the poor girl to the other side of the ring, her body hitting the surface hard. Amari groaned and rolled over, coughing up a spit of blood before feeling her limbs prick with needles of pain. He really wasn't holding back. Seeing the poor girl on the floor, he called out to her, "Give up, child," but she only frowned, already willing herself back to her feet. Her legs shook because of the shock, but Amari tried not to notice. No. Endeavor raised an eye at that. Amari, now realizing her gold matter wasn't enough for him, she would have to use her explosions. Trying to heighten her emotions, she shouted out, "You know, I never really hated anyone before. Funny, right? I think you're the first." She then felt the same hot ball of rage in her stomach, along with the desire to continue. If she stopped now, then Todoroki would always be controlled by this man. She needed to show him that he couldn't do as he pleased to her. Feeling her palms start to spark, she ran towards him again, this time throwing a large explosion in his path. Although he was able to step aside again, grabbing her arm once more to avoid the same fate. Amari grunted through her pain with everything she had, forcing her power into her palms. It seemed to work because Endeavor loosened his grip just slightly, allowing her to break away. She smiled at the small victory. It was short-lived, as the first collided with her stomach, knocking the life out of her in a single breath. Then, because of her weak state, he was able to throw her to the side again. His hit made her eyes blurry, slightly wondering if this was the training Todoroki was talking about. To face this as a small child, she didn't want to think about it. Coughing even more aggressively, Amari felt like her limbs were about to fall off. Endeavor watched the girl in disappointment. "Why do you even keep trying? Face it, child. You will never be a hero with a body like that." Feeling his words fill her entire body, she discovered a new sense of determination, already willing herself back to her feet slowly. No, this wasn't going to be over until she was dead. Shut up. Todoroki walked into the agency and sighed. Nothing had really happened during patrolling, and being stuck with his father for that long was certainly not ideal in the slightest. The entire time, he couldn't help but slightly wonder about how Amari was doing. He hoped she was okay. Recalling back a couple hours ago, he couldn't help but feel like something was wrong with her. She looked so annoyed, but when he tried to help her against those sidekicks, just hearing their insults brought a low rage in his throat. He hoped everything was okay now, though. Moving back towards his father's office, Todoroki couldn't help but notice the crowd of people gathering by the second floor of the training hall. They seemed excited about something. Just then, a couple of sidekicks quickly hurried by him, clearly hearing the conversation as they passed. "Hey, did you hear? That intern was crazy enough to challenge the boss." Todoroki stopped then, a sense of dread filling his stomach as he listened to their next phrase. "Yeah, let's go take a look. I heard he's kicking her ass hardcore." "Well, that's the boss for you." The words crashed in his mind all at once, now with a ring of terror in his body. No, that wasn't possible. Amari was reckless. But she wasn't stupid. She wouldn't have done that, right? He found his feet running on their own towards the huge group of people, shoving his way through as his heartbeat hammered in his chest. Please let her be okay. Please let her be okay. Finally getting to the front, Todoroki froze when he saw the display before him. What those sidekicks had said before was right. Amari was trying to fight his father, and losing mercilessly. He watched as Endeavor held nothing back, destroying the poor girl and throwing her to the ground over and over again. Placing a shaking hand to the surface of the glass, Todoroki couldn't help but think about his childhood, and that training his father gave him. He didn't want this for her. He needed to stop it. Before he could even think, he raced down the steps and reached the training grounds. He had to stop this now. Amari heaved out another breath, feeling herself close to exhaustion. If she kept this up, she would fall unconscious, and that would mean she gave up. Sighing in frustration, Endeavor also seemed over their match. "We will stop here. If you continue like this, you are going to die, and I don't want to be responsible for something like that." Heaving out another breath, he continued. "Take this as a lesson. Shoto and Todoroki, and the Todoroki line doesn't need anyone like you. You would just be a burden to us all." He started to turn away when Endeavor heard heavy groaning. Looking back, he couldn't help but stop, now watching this very broken girl still trying to stand to her feet. "What are you doing? You already lost. Don't be stubborn." But Amari wasn't listening, just crawling her fingers into the ground and forcing her body up to her feet. "I don't know the meaning of that word." As long as I'm still alive, I'm not backing down, asshole. I'm not finished with you yet. He couldn't help but seem surprised by this girl's actions. Here was this child, on the verge of exhaustion and death, and yet she was still somehow making herself stand back up. Recalling the words his sidekick said, Endeavor now realized that they had meant what they said. She wasn't human, and possibly a monster. Right now, he could see that. He blinked in surprise at her nature, replying back, You really are possibly insane. Do you actually have a death wish? But Amari just smiled at that. It was more of a grimace. Now you understand. You said it yourself. I'm already going to die. So what's the point, if it's now or later? If you really can't stand me, then you better be prepared to finish the job. Endeavor honestly didn't know what to say to that. From her looks and actions, it was very clear to tell that she wasn't joking in the slightest. This girl really was insane. There was something strange about her. Bringing his fist down to his side, he couldn't help but feel defeated. She really was something else. Fine, I'll train you. But don't assume that this means I've accepted you in any way. Blinking at the realization of her victory, Amari replied, Good, and don't assume this means I hate you any less. Endeavor just remained silent at that when the door next to him slammed open, revealing a very scared and angry Todoroki. Amari! She recognized his silhouette and smirked, and smiled, taking a step forward towards him before realizing her weak legs and falling forward. Shoto, he gasped and caught her just in time, cradling his arms around her before staring daggers at his father. What do you think you were doing? His father only replied plainly. I answered her request. She demanded I faced her. Don't be so soft, Shoto. It was her decision. Blinking in surprise, Todoroki frowned before focusing on taking Amari out of the situation. He didn't know what had happened, but he wanted to get her far away from here. Once they were outside, Amari carefully shrugged his arms off her. Hey, it's okay. I'm okay. Although Todoroki knew otherwise. No, you aren't. What were you thinking challenging my old man? You're insane. She somehow found his words funny. Yeah, I've been told that before. He didn't seem to like her light-hearted tone, though. He was too worried for her to accept that. I knew I shouldn't have left you alone. Look what happened. Come on, let's go find a new agency. Amari took in his words and couldn't help but feel a slight anger to them. Okay, what is with you? Huh? Okay, what is with you? You've been like this all day. What I did was my choice, and you need to accept that. Todoroki found her words ridiculous, though. I'm not going to accept you pushing yourself like this. Throwing her hands up in frustration, Amari answered back. Isn't that what being a hero is about? It's about pushing yourself past your breaking point, standing back up, regardless of whatever obstacles are in your way. I'm sorry to break it to you, Shoto, but being a hero is all about getting hurt. She had a point, but Amari was taking it to an extreme, and he needed her to know that. But you need to take care of yourself as well. You can't take all of these burdens on alone. His words seemed foreign to her, flashing back to her terrible memories. But that's all I've ever done. If I don't push myself, then I'm never taken seriously. I've always had to claw my way just for the opportunity to stand next to someone else. That's just how it is for me. Todoroki thought about her words and realized that her mindset was so warped from being left alone in America. She would always have to do this reckless thing because she had no support to lean on to. Her independence was hurting her. Gently touching her shoulder, Todoroki spoke. Amari, I understand, but doing these kinds of things worries me. You have to stop being so reckless. You could have just walked away from my old man. There's no reason to face him like you did. But she just shook her head at him. No, walking away is the same as giving up, and that's the one thing I will never do. Then he watched her as her eyes turned distant, almost as if she was recalling something. A long time ago, I was told that giving up is the same as dying. That if I ever give up, I'm just better off dead. Wrapping her arms around her shoulder, Todoroki couldn't help but become even more worried and concerned for her. Those words sounded so cruel and terrible. Was that really how she lived? Thinking she had to push herself to the brink of death rather than just walking away? What kind of horrible thing had this girl been through to be taught that? Todoroki lowered his voice in concern then, thinking back to all of her scars and burns she showed him. There was something wrong. with all this. It was like she was taught to be a robot, a machine, rather than a person. Amari, what happened to you? She closed her eyes in pain at that, willing the memories away. I don't want to talk about it. Not now, at least. The worry was making him go insane, but her body language made him hold back. She looked so afraid, so haunted by something. If she didn't want to tell him now, then there was nothing he could do. Todoroki's eyes saddened, instead choosing to bring her into a warm embrace, his voice now tickling her ear. It's all right. You don't have to tell me now. But I'm always here for you, okay? It's not the same back then. Now you have support. Now you have me. Amari felt the warm embrace and couldn't help but melt into his touch. He saw this and sighed in relief. This girl, perhaps, she was more broken than he thought. Endeavor heard a heavy knock on the door before revealing Katsu. Sir, here's the file you wanted on Bakugo Amari. Grabbing the paper, Todoroki's father flipped open the folder carefully. Thank you. Katsu spoke back evenly. If I may ask, are you really going to personally train her? It's just you've never really done that for anyone, minus your children. Scanning the file, Endeavor couldn't help but sigh. There was something about her, something different. What did you find out about the girl? Katsu then pulled out his own folder and began reading. Not much, like you said before. She's just a weak girl with a weak condition, although we did find something strange. Endeavor's eyes raised at that, allowing him to continue. When she studied in America, Bakugo attended Primrose Academy, although there was just one thing about that. Primrose isn't a hero school. In fact, using quirks there is mainly unheard of. She wouldn't have been that kind of extensive training there. Narrowing his eyes, the man recalled his fight with the girl. Her training was clearly advanced for a child, so this piece of evidence was certainly strange. Where did she learn to fight then? Katsuki then turned a page. Because of that, I did some research on the academy itself, and it turned out that during the time she attended, in the last 5 years, at least one of the students had gone missing, never to be seen again. That is, until something changed. Taking a step forward, Katsu showed Endeavor a piece of paper. It looked to be a missing poster. Bakugo Amari was announced missing a month before coming back unharmed. The school never reported the incident, and it was swept under the rug before news outlets could get the scent. After that, no other children have been reported missing. The man couldn't help but listen to the information with interest. If Amari was a missing child, then why hadn't the school reported on it? And why has she come back unharmed? Was there anything different about the child when she returned? Katsu nodded his head then, leaning forward. That's just it. Before she went missing, Bakugo was basically quirkless. But after she returned, the girl was suddenly able to control her quirk, and it was like a complete turnaround in her condition. But that was all the information we have. The information brought even more confusion in the air. Endeavor was right. There was something strange about this girl, and he was going to find out what it was. Okay, so this is just their little thing saying we're connecting the pieces of her story. Yeah, she's a badass. Okay, check her out. She's a good writer. This is going to be posted on the 23rd. That says 33rd. I should rewrite that. This is going to be posted on the 23rd. Yeah, okay. Still feel like I'm forgetting something, but I know I'm not. I'm ready to get some sleep. You will hear me in the next video. Bye-bye.